Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today I have Carlos Roel. I've known Carlos for so many years. I don't even know what the first thing we met at was.
I don't know. Beach volleyball, maybe?
Maybe it was beach volleyball.
AVP or Cuervo, Jose Cuervo, when it was Jose Cuervo.
Maybe. And then Black Belt Sports Medicine. Obviously, you've been part of that for a long time. And then we've just done so many events together since then. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't remember the first time we met. I think it was either Jose Cuervo or AVP, whichever one was
it was them.
In control at the time.
Yeah. And then we've kept in contact since then. You're like one of my core California people. So I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you on to talk about fencing because nobody talks about it enough and nobody actually understands the sports.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've learned a lot throughout the years for sure.
Yeah.
As a non-fencer, like I haven't fenced still, even while being on the team, like still haven't fenced.
Exactly. So I have a little background just because Caltech had a varsity fencing team for a few years while I was there. And then, you've been with the national team for a while now, but I just want to let everybody know what your background was. If you could give us a little run through of a few of your credentials and a few of the teams that you're involved with.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a athletic trainer, physical therapist, and then I have my certified strength conditioning specialist. But my main jobs are using my ATC skill set and my PT skill sets. I still use my CSCS, but I don't like, I don't do programming for athletes to peak in a certain time in their qualifying year or whatever for the Olympics or any sport that they're in. I speak the language. I teach as well too. I love to teach, which is crazy saying that because earlier Carlos was like scared to teach, but I am a teacher. The teams I work with right now, I work with USA Beach Volleyball, US Soccer, USA Fencing, and then recently with USA Cycling, their indoor track team, their sprint team.
Yeah. Well, and we've also done the Fire Wellness program at Santa Ana. I totally forgot about that too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so I still do that at Santa Ana College here in Southern California, Orange County, California. Yeah. And so Santa Ana College has a program that helps out fire departments and police departments in Southern California, and they provide injury wellness, nutrition, strength and conditioning, and then they do like a yearly blood draw, annual checkup, physical checkup, and like just body checkup as well too, to each of the departments that are contracted with the fire wellness program.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So you do a lot of international travel. I wanted to have you on to talk about that too, but we'll get to the fencing first because it's a combat sport technically. And it's interesting when people shy away from it because, I don't know, it's crazy to watch, obviously, but it's usually pretty chill other than when I had somebody rupture their Achilles a few months ago. So,
And that's the biggest thing is like the biggest things are soft tissue injuries from like musculoskeletal injuries and not like penetrating injuries from the blades. Yeah. You can get that, but it's not frequent.
Yeah. So I don't know, can you give us a little rundown on the different types of blades? What is the kind of structure start to finish, some of the rules, and how are you actually going to win? How many times do you have to stab someone before you win?
Yes, great question. So there's three weapons in fencing. There's épée, saber, and foil. Épée and foil, they're pretty similar because they're both poking blades. So épée and foil, you poke. Saber is more of a slashing. And then in terms of the target, épée, the whole body is a target. So you can score a point by we call it a touch. By scoring a point, you score a touch on any part of the body. It could be the shoelace of your opponent, and you get the point. So that's épée. Foil. Foil is actually I have some. This is an épée mask. Foil. You have the bottom part of the bib, and then you have the torso, just the torso as a target. Saber. I have a saber mask. This is the saber mask. The whole mask, both upper extremities and the torso are the target. And then, like I mentioned, épée, it could be any part of the body. It could be the mask, it could be the bib, it can be the arm, thigh, anything. Shoelace, like I mentioned earlier. So that's how you score the points for each of those three blades.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then you mentioned like what's how many points do you score? Yeah, so 15 points.
15.
At least outside of pool play. In pool play, it's first to 5 points, but in a pool it's either 5 or 7 to a pool, and it is a round robin where everybody fights each other. And it's first to 5, and whoever has the most wins out of those 5 to 7 bouts that you have, you advance to direct eliminations, which is the next round.
Gotcha. So the 15 would be the next round after the round robin.
Exactly. So round robin is first to 5, and then after that, first to 15 from direct eliminations all the way to the middle rounds.
Gotcha. And then is this timed at all? Like, do they have to do this within a certain time parameter, or is it just whoever gets the most points first?
It would be, so épée and foil. So only 2 blades are timed. Épée and foil are timed, and it's 3 periods. And each period is 3 minutes. So let's say in épée, let's say the score is 12-13, but it's the third period. There's 30 seconds left. And the score stays at 12-13. The one with 13 wins. Gotcha. So you don't have to score 15.
Okay. And then, I mean, in regular traditional sports, there's fouls. Is there a way to, like an inappropriate lunge or stab or touch, I guess, or, sportsmanship wise, what's that about?
So, man, a lot of it is the referee's discretion, but generally, and for some of them, I don't know all the rules for the fouls, but for the ones that I do know, things like false start, you can false start in fencing. So you're given like a 1 false start for free.
Yeah.
But after that, then you're given a yellow card, and the yellow card is the other person gets the point, and you have a yellow card on you for that match. And if you get 2 yellow cards is equal to a red card, you don't get booted out. I don't think so, but it's just another point. Yeah. So it's something to that extent. I'm not 100% sure with that, but so that's what the false starts. You can do like with épée and foil, that being a poking sport or poking blade. Let's say you slash somebody, that's frowned upon in foil and épée. Yeah, you're not really. It can happen. It can happen on accident, but it's not like if you give an intentional slash, then that can be a direct red card.
Gotcha.
Or it could be a yellow card if it was, depending on the ref.
Yeah.
And there is a black card too. Black card is you're booted out of the competition. Yeah,
interesting.
So you can get that if the foul is like pretty bad, you can get a black card.
Well, so you went through the different face masks, and then they always wear the white suits, I guess. Yes. Is that what you would call them?
Yeah. So it's jacket. All of them have the jacket. All of them have the pants. Underneath the jacket, they should be wearing what's called a plastron, which is, so if I'm right-handed, a right-handed fencer, the plastron is an underneath protective layer that protects my torso and a chunk of my right arm. But basically, it's to minimize the penetration. If the blade penetrates the top layers, the plastron can help with creating another barrier to minimize penetration to the torso.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So everybody has that. And then foil and saber, they have a layer on top, which is more metallic color, metallic feeling. And foil is just, it's called the lame. So you have the lame that covers just the torso. And then the lame for saber is the upper extremities plus the torso.
So as you've gone through this, how is your French coming along? Because isn't it all French based?
Yeah. I mean, I know how to say ready, set, go in French, but
that's about it.
That's about it, yeah.
So obviously you talked a little bit that you have a CSCS background, but when you're working with these athletes, when they're injured and all that, what are some of the physical skills needed to be a fencer?
You know what? Lunging. They need to lunge, and that's how they score their points majority of the time. So they're going to need to be strong lungers. So they're going to need that hip mobility, both front and back. They're going to need that ankle mobility, and it's crazy too because they contort their bodies in different positions while in that lunge position as well too. So maybe, as those who are training the fencers, maybe you train the fencers in some textbook positions just to get them accustomed. As long as it's safe positions, they're stabilizing correctly, but maybe like a non-textbook position. That's how you want to train them in the lunge or squat exercise.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So injury prevention wise, what are a lot of the injuries that you see in fencing?
So I was chatting last year with one of the fencers. She's retired now, but she is in med school, and she was doing some research on the incidence of injuries and what body parts are getting injured. She found with her preliminary research, because her research isn't done yet, but she found that the forearm, lateral epicondyle specifically, that muscle group is number one, like most injured body part, followed by low back, followed by, I can't remember if number 3 was knee or ankle, but I want to say it's ankle. And it's typically from stepping on your opponent's ankle when lunging or advancing or running backwards.
Yeah. So we know that poking injuries, touch injuries, slashing. Have you seen any injuries like that? Like, what is the prevalence of some sort of, lung injury, I guess, or something like that?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in my career. I've been with USA Fencing since 2013. I worked domestic tournaments only from 2013 to about 2021, 2022. And then in 2021, 22, I can't remember, is when I started traveling international. But throughout my time, the only blade injuries that I've seen is on the weapon hand, a blade getting cutting through the seam of the weapon hand and cutting the web space of the hand. That's one, which is very interesting, seeing the hand through that little space right there, seeing some of the tendons. Super interesting. That, and then I saw it happened to the guy twice in the same bout. Dude is lucky. I told him to buy a lotto ticket because he got lucky. But the blade came underneath the bib, and it was one of the poking. I can't remember if it was foil or epee, but it hit and then slid underneath, and then it grazed the lateral side of his neck. Ugh. Again, same bout happened twice. I had to do a strip call on him 2 times at different times. Yeah. After the second strip call, I stayed there. I didn't go back to the sports med area. And this one, both of those were domestic tournaments. So with this one, we have a centralized sports med tent, and that's where we stay in the venue, which is different than international.
So with all these international athletes coming together, I mean, obviously you're working with the American national team, but what is the energy with all of these different cultures coming together? Obviously, I would assume some are more intense, some are maybe a little bit more laid back, some are very, I don't know, tight. Not tight asses, but
Yeah.
prestige, I
So,
guess, was the word I was thinking of. How does that all work?
I mean, everything you described is accurate. It just kind of depends on the athlete, whether it's a athlete from USA or an athlete from another part of the world. Yeah, it just varies, but generally, with the US team, it's positive vibes for the most part. There's going to be highs and lows just because, like you said, it's combat sport, and you need to get locked in. You have to get locked in, but for the most part, it's from the sports med side, like it's love, it's appreciation. It's a lot of teamwork. Like a lot of the athletes support the other athletes when they're competing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool to see, because it is pretty much an individual sport unless it's a team event, and then it's 4 versus 4. But I do see the athletes supporting other athletes, because a lot of these athletes train together too when they're not competing, and so they create this bond, and so they try to support each other when their partner's on the strip.
Yeah.
Competing.
Well, because a lot of them come to the U.S. to compete at the colleges, don't they? The international. Yeah. So they all are basically teammates at some point or another.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is interesting, because then you have like some U.S. athletes cheering on some Egyptian athletes or Moroccan athletes that train and go to school here in the States. So it's cool. Like, but if both of them were on the strip, it's a battle. But it's a respectful battle for the most part.
Yeah. So when you've gone internationally, or even the domestic stuff with internationals coming, what does their medical team look like most of the time?
It varies. Some don't have medical, so they rely on the governing, whoever's hosting the host site. If they have a medical, then they're relying on the host site medical staff.
Gotcha.
And the USA, we have a little bit more funding with USA Fencing, so they are able to provide at least one medical person to come in and support the athletes for most of the trips, if not all of the international trips. Yeah. Gotcha. So it's and the skill set varies. Yeah. I don't really know. I know some of the European physios, which is kind of like a general term for like a sports med clinician, or internationally, typically a physical therapist. This is also termed a physio. But the physios internationally, a lot of them are physical therapists, but they have that like emergency responder background as well too.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So they're like kind of like ATCs, PTs. Again, physio is kind of like an umbrella term.
Yeah. So when you're preparing for these international trips, no matter which team you're really going with, what advice would you give somebody when they're packing for an international trip?
As a sportsman, like what advice I would give a sportsman? Your basic blood stuff. So I mentioned like you're not going to get like traumatic, blunt like blade injuries, but like, so I'm right-handed. I have a glove on my right hand. It's my weapon hand. My non-weapon hand, my left hand, typically does not have a glove. So you could get like cut injuries from that too. Yeah. So things like that. But
comfortable, low profile, flexible, and easy to put on, the Vero ankle brace is simply the best ankle brace for those who move. And that's just about everybody. This brace is adaptable for any phase of injury recovery, whether you're recovering from an ankle sprain, require extra support for your day-to-day, or want to boost your performance. The Vero ankle brace delivers. The Vero ankle brace uses every movement and every step to give you extra boost. The 3-in-1 brace can be worn on either foot, making it the most optimal ankle brace for injury recovery and prevention. The removable stirrups, easy adjust Velcro, and breathable design adapt to your ankle as your strength returns, helping to protect you from re-injury. A dynamic support brace designed by leading orthopedic foot and ankle surgeons. The Vero ankle brace effortlessly adapt to your movements, offering dynamic energy return and support with each step. VeroAnkle.com. Check it out for yourself. VeroAnkle.com. That's VeroAnkle.com.
So take your blood stuff, but even more importantly, you're going to want to take more like soft tissue cream, your creams, your lotions, some stuff for soft tissue work. That's probably like what I use the most is that.
Gotcha.
And then take your tapes, so that way if they do sprain an ankle, if you have to wrap their thigh because they sprained a thigh, strained the thigh muscle, then you can wrap them up. So either with tape or with an elastic wrap.
Yeah.
So that's your typical like sports med stuff. But on the side, what I started doing once I started, I think my second year traveling internationally, is I started traveling with a multi-tool.
Oh,
And and because each weapon has different bits that are needed to make adjustments. And so I know my multi-tool that I have right now that I packed is enough to work with the handle and the blade, like that junction.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not enough to work with like epee and foil, the very tip of their blade. They have like a spring mechanism.
Mm.
So my multi-tool can probably do some work with it, but it's not specialized to do work with that. The tip, which is what triggers that point.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I didn't realize it was
scoring the point.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize it was an actual spring. I thought it was like metal, like electronic, I guess magnets or something. I thought it was kind of more of that setup, not an actual spring.
Yeah, Saber is pure metal to metal contact.
Oh, okay.
So there's no like movement at the very tip of the blade for the Saber. Any part of the blade that touches the target area, you score the point. But with foil and epee, again, I don't know the full mechanism. I think it's a spring mechanism. The spring has to get triggered. Like the very tip has to push in enough to trigger, and then it's going to recoil via the spring. I think that's what it is.
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm surprised that more athletic trainers don't have a multi-tool in general in their kit.
Yeah, and that's funny. Not funny you say that, but it is funny you say that. But since I started carrying the multi-tool for fencing, I started carrying it on my other kits too. I have a different multi-tool for my other kits.
Yeah. Well, I'm just surprised Leatherman hasn't like sponsored the NATA or something yet.
Bro, that would be so sick, man.
I know.
Yeah. I recently bought a Leatherman for my main kit. That's not fencing kit.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I mean, we're like the backup equipment person if they don't have an equipment person in general.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, if Leatherman, if you're listening, you can sponsor my show.
Yes. Yes, do it. Shelby's worth it. Do it, Leatherman.
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions about fencing that you've heard?
So common ones is it's a preppy, the stereotype, the preppy sport, which I can see that a lot of the universities that do have fencing part of their core sport are like Ivy League. They're that preppy stereotype of university, but you also have individuals that don't go to preppy schools that are up and coming, and they're just kicking butt, and they they're part of the team as well too. A lot of them come up through foundations or organizations that provide support to the underserved, underprivileged, and that's how some of the athletes kind of come up. Yeah.
And why do you think so many athletic trainers are so resistant to covering fencing?
I think because it's not so common. It's not like your typical US sports like football, baseball, basketball. Like those are the three main sports. It's especially here on the West Coast. I'm LA based, so on the West Coast, there's not a lot of fencing studios. The high schools here don't have fencing. Um, the studios are growing. There's more and more popping up, but like you don't see it in high school. You don't see it on TV over here, really. So there's not a lot of fencing in general in here, at least in the West Coast. But I want to say maybe in the majority of the U.S., there's not a lot of fencing just shown in general. It's big on the East Coast, big in Boston, big in New York. New York is like the biggest, probably the epicenter of fencing here in the States.
So which countries are like the biggest for fencing? I would assume France.
France is big. A lot of the European countries are big with fencing. A lot of them. A lot of the Asian countries, their fencing is growing big.
Oh, really?
Big. Yeah.
That's interesting.
China, Japan, Korea getting just huge with fencing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know you haven't gone with fencing to the Olympics yet.
Not yet.
But I know that maybe soon.
I'm hoping.
But I know that you went with the Paralympic soccer team to Rio. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
The Rio Games in 2016.
Yeah. So can you comment on that experience a little bit?
Yeah. Different. So it's Paralympic soccer. And so with this Paralympic soccer team, back when I started, it was called the Paralympic soccer team. Now it's called the CP team. CP as in cerebral palsy. And it's governed by US Soccer. And even though it has the name cerebral palsy, it's not just individuals that have cerebral palsy. It's also those who have suffered traumatic brain injuries, those who have suffered a stroke or have a brain tumor or arterial venous malformation, something that creates motor dysfunction from a damage to the brain. So it's not a limb loss, or it's not wheelchair, although US Soccer now has wheelchair soccer, which is called power soccer. And word on the street, it's not confirmed, I'm not 100% sure, but US Soccer might get an amputee soccer as well too. Yeah, so they running with crutches. So that's a maybe. But so my brain injury guys, because I went with a male team because there was only a male team back in 2016. Now there's a female team as well. Yeah, it was very interesting. One thing I like to point out with that team is that in order to qualify for that team, you have to have an impairment, meaning from the sports med side, you're going to be busy.
Yeah.
Because you're not only trying to fix their soccer injuries, you're also trying to help them out with their, whole hemiplegic side. Or if they're diplegic, meaning both of their legs are impaired, you might have to help them with getting just strength in their legs in general, just for life purposes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that stood out, working with able-bodied soccer players or footballers, for all your international fans. And then working with the Paralympic footballers. It was just a little bit more work, which is fine. Like I loved it because I love working with that population. But it's just, you're going to be working with their day-to-day impairments as well as their football injuries.
Yeah. Well, so how do you balance that? Because obviously you guys went to go compete, but are you talking about the management leading up to the games, or are you saying like even at the games you had to manage their pre-existing conditions also?
Mainly before the games.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly before the games. Yeah. And there's this fine balance too, because with any Paralympic team, you have to be in the spectrum of disability. If you're too able-bodied, then it's going to be unfair for everybody else to compete against. If you're too disabled, then you're not going to be able to compete enough. So you have to fall within the spectrum. So if because there were some athletes on my team that they were former military and they had brain injuries. If you were to see them walking on the street, you wouldn't be able to tell that they had brain injuries, that they had some neurological motor impairment.
Yeah.
But where am I going with this? So, yes. So if I made those guys too good or too strong or too able-bodied, then they would have to get kicked off the team. Whether it was from us medical staff doing a preliminary assessment, or going overseas and having a third party do an assessment to see where in the spectrum they fall.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So kind of a weird question. I'm not sure how to present it, but I guess when these athletes have their injury happen, their brain injury, do some of them recover later in life? Or like, I mean, that's kind of the odd, weird thing is like, they're technically still healing. They're just very symptomatic.
Yeah.
So they may qualify 1 year, but then maybe the next games they're not able to qualify. Is that kind of a thing?
That is definitely a thing. That is definitely a thing. Yeah, we had that happen. Where were we? This was 2 years prior to Rio. I think we were in Spain or Canada. I think it was Canada. It was the Pan Ams, if I remember correctly. It was the Pan American Games in Toronto. And we had an athlete that he was brain injured. He was former military, and he was too good. And he was just drilling the balls, just striking the balls, just laser beaming them into the net, and doing the agility drills just perfectly. And so, even though previously he fell within that spectrum of disability, he showed to that third party organization that he was too able-bodied. And so we had to send him home from Canada. And so we lost him. We lost him for that tournament, but then we also lost him for the Rio Games because he was too, able-bodied.
And that's like so weird because you want them to get better, obviously.
Yeah,
but then
exactly.
You want a good athlete for your team too.
Yeah. So exactly. So in one sense, you're happy, like, yo, bro, you're freaking killing it in life, but dang it, we lost you for the games, for the tournament and the rest of, the quad, the Olympic quad.
Yeah. So you're just like too good at your job, obviously.
I mean, I had a piece of, a part of his healing, but he was him though too.
Yeah. No. So I don't know is that frustrating to you? Like, it would be an odd feeling, I feel like.
It's, I don't know if frustrating is the right word. Not frustrating, but it's more like, at least for me, is more anxiety provoking. Like, dang it, like.
Now we have to go find someone else.
Find somebody else.
Time.
And find somebody else and be super accurate with my assessment. So that way, when that third party assesses them, we have very similar results of the athlete. So it's very anxiety provoking on my end because I need to be on my game because that third party organization, they're going to just try to find ways. They're not going to try to find ways to make them able-bodied, but they're just going to be thorough.
Yeah.
They're going to be super thorough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you guys try to keep, U.S. soccer in general keeps a pretty wide pool in case of injury and all that. So for your team, I'm assuming you'd have to keep a pretty wide pool and have people, like a pretty big team to practice with because you never know when somebody's going to miraculously get better and meet surpass the criteria.
Yeah. And over the years, that pool is getting bigger and bigger. The pool for like brain injury or CP soccer is very small in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's not like able-bodied soccer because, man, every state has superstars with able-bodied soccer.
Yeah.
CP soccer is a little bit more difficult to find.
Yeah. So you talked about,
but it's getting bigger.
Yeah, you talked about the strength and conditioning portion of it. not that you're bagging their treatments, obviously, but do you feel that you said you kind of have to manage it ultimately, or do you just go full out and you're just trying to make them better? How does that work?
So with the USCP team, there is a strength coach. So they do all the gym stuff, all the field stuff. So they're responsible for that. But on the side, the athletes come to me with, usually it's with pain because of their impairment. And so that's where I come in and I'm like, okay, cool. How do we have you function through life without pain? So yeah, that's where that comes in. And I communicate with the strength coach too, just to let them know, like, hey, this is what we're going. This is what we're doing. This is our goal. Let's reflect our goals or combine our goals with the goals in the gym and on the field. And, just to help that athlete get stronger, better.
Yeah.
And hopefully fall within that spectrum of disability still.
So with that, the pain management portion of it, not that I want to name drop or anything, but with like Z Health, do you do a lot of like brain or eye health things with the brain injuries?
So yes, but I have not taken any Z Health specific courses. I've learned some of their concepts from because I used to work with another brand that works with Z Health. Yeah. And so through that brand, I learned a little bit of Z Health concepts. But just through my training with my residency and fellowships, because I did a residency in the neuro unit in the hospital. And so I did a lot of most of my stuff, neuro stuff was from there, and then adding stuff from my fellowship, PT fellowship 8 years after the residency. Yeah. So, yeah. But I do eye stuff. I do brain stuff. Okay. Cool. Or neuro, I should say.
It's really all neuro, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, more than ever, athletic trainers are becoming inundated with the growing volumes and sources of data surrounding clinical injury management. In fact, the purpose of data has changed. Whether it's pre-participation examinations, electronic medical records, concussion management, nutrition, or wearable devices, athletic trainers are constantly faced with new and complicated challenges interpreting data to drive patient care outcomes, reduce injury rates, and show practitioner value. To get ahead of this change, athletic training departments turn to Preventix, a data analytics solution provider. With over 25 years of athletic training and clinical data experience, Preventix empowers athletic training and sports medicine organizations with tools necessary to quantify the impact of care interventions on patient success and outcomes. As a trusted partner, Preventix works with you to build a strategy that addresses your specific pain points, integrating all your data sources, providing clean, reliable data, dashboards, and metrics that can be immediately accessed by stakeholders at the point of care. Don't let messy, siloed data continue to negatively impact your care delivery initiatives and practitioner value. Unlock the power of your clinical data today. Visit Preventix.com for more information. Preventix.com. Well, what else do you want to tell us about your journey and what you've done?
It's a journey, that's for sure. Especially working with these 3 teams. And just to be specific for your audiences, I'm not full-time staff with those 4 teams that I mentioned. I'm an independent contractor with those 4 teams, which is how I'm able to travel with all 4 teams. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a journey. It's been great. I love talking about my journey, especially for students. The sports med students, just because everybody sees this, this Team USA thing as like, wow, unicorn and rainbows and it's happiness, and which it is, but at the same time, it can be very tough. It's very tough. It can be very grueling. International travel, it can beat you up. I was in Budapest 2 weekends ago, and my flight from LAX to Frankfurt, because my layover was Frankfurt, I had about an hour 45, 2 hour layover. I was delayed in LAX because we had a drunk guy who got kicked off the plane. So it delayed everybody, which means I have less time to make my connecting flight, which means I have to run from one part of the Frankfurt airport to the other end of the Frankfurt airport and still pass through their customs.
Yeah.
And make it on time. You know what I mean? And that's like, you're tired from the flight. I don't sleep well on flights. Like the last thing I want to do is just run and stress and go into a cortisol dump and make it from one end to the other end.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I ended up making it, but my luggage didn't make it. That's how close it was. You know, I made it because I sprinted, but my luggage didn't make it. And my luggage had a majority of my supplies. So now how am I going to support the athletes with my treatment table and the majority of my supplies, you know, stuck in Frankfurt while I'm in Budapest?
Yeah.
Fortunately, you know, I think ahead, and a little tip for all of you that are up and coming, have some supplies with you on your carry-on.
Yeah. Or at least have some idea where the drugstore is where you can go pick something up.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Or even better too, make friends with the physios internationally too.
Yes.
Which is very important. Be nice. Carry pins, USA pins, give them out, you make homies instantly. These pins are like gold nuggets, man, I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What type of tips do you have for athletic trainers that are traveling internationally for their personal recovery due to the time changes, the long flights? You know, you're not necessarily considered first in the care. How do you take care of yourself on those flights and travel?
I found a good pillow system. And I don't know, do we want to name brands on here? Like,
I don't care.
Or
whatever.
You don't care? Okay. All right. There's a pillow system because I don't really use a pillow itself, but it's called Sleeper Hold pillow. Sleeper Hold, if you're listening, sponsor Shelby. But basically, it reminds me of F1 racers. Their helmets, they're tethered to the backrest. Like if they're, you know, flipping in the air from a crash, their head isn't just bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
This Sleeper Hold pillow system is similar, but instead of like your helmet being tethered, it's the eye mask that wraps around your eye and then attaches to a strap that you yourself strap onto the backrest, the headrest. Because of that, I've used it twice and I've slept better than before.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so find a pillow system that works for you. That works for me. It might not work for your audience, but that works for me. Just find a system that'll work for you. I've seen athletes carry full size pillows and then just boom, just knock out with the pillows.
Yeah.
That if you're able to take melatonin helps me out. So I take that. Don't take it if you can't take it.
Yeah.
I'm no physician, so but for me it helps. Things like that. I probably should do the whole like no TV screen, computer screen before I go to sleep. But I haven't tried that yet when I'm overseas. Typically I have the TV on when I'm like setting things up because I like to unpack my supplies and then make my kit ready for the next day for competition.
Yeah.
So sleep system, find it out. For me, melatonin works. And you have to find the right dosage for you too, because I finally found the right dosage that works for me. I was playing around with the dosage. What else can I say? What other tips? If you can, depending on the culture of you and your team, you can probably sneak in a nap during the day. I know with some of the teams that I'm with, the fencing in particular, they're cool if I knock out on the bleachers for like 10, 15 minutes while they're waiting between pools and DEs, direct eliminations, or between like the right before the medal rounds. You know, there's a time gap typically, sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours between like before medal rounds. So again, it just depends on the culture that and relationship that you have with your athlete and coaches. You know, make sure you let them know that you're falling asleep and for these reasons, because if they just find you asleep on the bleachers, then they might think you're a lazy bums.
Of course. And I think hydration is underutilized for travel
Oh,
too.
thank you. That is huge. Yeah, as much like hydration tablets or powders that I give the athletes, I make sure I have them in my shaker bottle as well too. And I have
Yeah.
it on my flight, during the flight, and then after the flight, have it.
Yeah. Well, I've recently found Recess. It's a magnesium
Mm,
powder.
okay.
They actually make like the soda, or they make cans of it too, but the powders are obviously easier to maneuver around with. But
Hmm.
that's been really helpful for me, just because I get dehydrated so quickly. And then it helps like with the anxiety, and then it
Okay.
helps you get to sleep too. So something to look into.
Yeah, yeah. When I get dehydrated, I get a headache.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning that because that's important. Because on flights, if I don't drink, I get a headache instantly, and I travel with Excedrin
Yeah.
for
Yep.
those reasons.
Yeah. Um, well, let's see. Let's end it with one crazy story from one of your international trips. I'll
Oh
give you a
man,
second.
yeah, I got a couple. Dang it, man. The first one that comes to mind is a diarrhea story. Should we go there or dang it? That's
We can do two
the
or
first.
three. Let's do it.
All right, the athlete might see this. If you know who you are, sorry, I'm not gonna name names. All right. This was during a tournament. I won't name the tournament just to like, it was a big tournament though. It was a big one, very important tournament, international tournament. It had a closing ceremony, and after we all went to the closing ceremony as a team. After the closing ceremony, we bust back, and one of our athletes really had to use the bathroom, started getting the urge to have diarrhea, and we were overseas. And typically I like to carry OTC meds, over the counter meds, on me
Yeah.
everywhere I go when I'm with the team. At this time, I didn't though. And again, because it was a celebration, closing ceremony,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of people, not too many buses, so we had to wait, and we had to wait a long time to go from the venue all the way to where we were staying. And oh my gosh, I felt so bad for the dude. Um, we finally made it, and fortunately, oh my goodness, fortunately, right where the buses dropped us off, there was porta potties.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, porta potties. And so I run ahead of them just to make sure that they're open.
Yeah.
And there was maybe like six porta potties. All of them were locked except for the last one that I checked. I had given up hope. On that fifth one, I was like, crap, this, and no pun intended. I was like, crap, the sixth one is going to be locked. And I checked that sixth one, and it was open. I was like, hey, yo, bro, this one's open. Boom, just he got in there and just, he did his work, what he
Yeah.
had to do. But, you know, the team physician was doing like pressure points to try to
Oh,
minimize the urge, pressure points on the hand. We were just trying to like distract them. We were just trying to help him out as much as we could, but he was struggling. He was struggle busting it. Yeah.
well, is that what you want to end it with, or do you have another one?
I don't know, man. Let me see. Um, Crazy. Okay, I'll give you a weather one.
Okay.
And this one is more maybe like for the future sportsman, maybe give you some tips or give that population some tips. So fencing, this was a fencing tournament. It was a domestic tournament, and it was during winter. And myself and then another medical provider, both LA based, we had to fly all the way to Richmond, Virginia. No, sorry, Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach. So all the way to the other end of the States. Worst winter they were having at the time. And we fly into, where was it? It wasn't DC. It was one of the airports right next to DC.
Like
Um,
Bullfork? No.
I don't know. Because there's Baltimore, there's the one at
Yeah.
DC, and then there's like another one.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. I can't think of it right now.
I can't remember. Or maybe we did fly into DC. But either
Yeah.
way, we flew into DC, but because it was the worst storm ever, and it was a snowstorm. It wasn't rain, it was a snowstorm. It was just white along the whole East Coast. And so we were stuck, and we had to go to the competition the following day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're in DC, we have to get to Richmond. And we had to, and then we had another sports med colleague in Baltimore. So he was in the Baltimore airport. And so myself and my colleague, again, who came from LA, she's a chiropractor, Ashley. So my friend Ashley, were like, okay, what are we going to do? All right, cool. Let's talk with Adam. Adam was stuck in Baltimore, and we were, communicating with each other. And we're like, okay, cool. Ashley and myself, we're going to rent a car. We're going to drive, pick up Adam, Baltimore. From Baltimore, we're going to drive in the snow all the way down to Richmond, Virginia. And this was, it wasn't early. This was in the evening. Yeah. This was maybe like midnight. And so we were lucky to be able to rent a car because it was so late. But the airports knew, that people were going to need some form of transportation. So I think they left the rental places open. But we did that. We problem solved. We didn't freak out. We didn't give up. We were like, all right, we're going to rent a car, pick up Adam. We're going to go down to Virginia Beach, and we're going to make the tournament the next day. And we did it. We did it. So that's that. We'll end on that story. It's a better one than the diarrhea story. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, car rentals are such a big part of travel, like even domestic or international. It's like always make sure you have the rental lined up. I just remember one time we were in Texas and there was a hurricane coming through, and so we got 2 vans because it was the indoor soccer team I was with, and so they had me go pick up the van to go pick up the athletes, or the second string of athletes flying in, and the hurricane was coming in, so everything was basically rented out, and we got these vans. And so I'm a good driver. I was coming through the parking. I was coming through the parking garage, and I just cut it too close, and I hit one of those concrete beams. The pillars. So there's that step up to the sliding door, and I crunched it up, so you couldn't open the sliding door at all.
Oh no.
So I had to call my boss and was like, I'm so sorry, your insurance is probably going to get charged for this.
Oh no.
I had to go back to the desk and be like, I'm so sorry, I messed it up. And they had 1 van left out of everything.
You were exiting the car rental place.
Yeah, I was exiting the car rental place. They had those concrete pillars. Yeah, I cut it too close.
Oh my gosh.
Folded up that step. So I couldn't open up the sliding door at all. So it wasn't like we could just limp through the weekend. So I had to go back and was like, do you have anything else? And they're like, we have 1 van left.
Wow.
And we were able to get everybody on and out. But oh my gosh. I don't get into accidents, and that was of course the one. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning too. So I was just beat tired,
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that is. Yeah, parking when you're tired. I recently did that to my car. I was tired. It was in the evening. I was just parking in my spot, and I little corner tapped the wall.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So, athletic trainers are good at driving. Preface that.
We are. Dude, I'm such a better driver now with those vans that you were talking about. Big vans, right? Carry I don't know, 18.
So it was 12 or something.
Oh,
whatever.
12. Yeah, 12.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm gangster with those vans. I can drive any car now because of those vans. And U-Hauls too. I can drive U-Hauls all day.
Get your CDL.
I know. Serious, I should.
So, well, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. If anybody wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Social media will probably be the best. Yes, Carlos, Oh, sorry. No, I was going to give you something else. It's going to be Dr. Carlos R. Physio for Instagram and Twitter or X. But I'm hardly on X. But if you go to Dr. Carlos R. Physio.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
You'll find me.
Yes, follow Carlos. He has some amazing stories when he's traveling and getting to see the different athletes he works with. So I'd highly recommend to add him to your list of, what is it, fangirling? I don't know. The groupie. Yeah, Carlos groupie.
I don't post too much on IG, but when I do post, typically it's something funny or dumb, especially the stories.
Well, it's just like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where in the world is Carlos Roel?
Yeah.
So, but, well, thank you so much. And
You're very
I
welcome.
hope to
Thank
talk
you
to
for
you
having
soon.
me. Yes, let's do it again.
Perfect.
All right, cool.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It is hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.